Storydepths presents audiobook of the Curators Series, Book 1, Zephy Awakening by Kennard. You are listening to Episode 1 from Zephy Awakening. All rights reserved. Prologue. In the beginning, there was birth, chaos, and destruction. The universe is a swirling mass of galaxies filled with stars and darkness. It is a tapestry of creation and destruction. The countless galaxies that sparkled like jewels in the cosmic sea have their own guardian. These beings possess immense power and wisdom. They are entrusted with the sacred duty of maintaining harmony within their galaxy. They are the Curators, ancient and ageless. They control the very forces of nature and the celestial bodies themselves. Among these Curators was one whose destiny was intertwined with the fate of the galaxy, Zephy. Zephy, like his fellow Curators, was a being of great power. He wielded the cosmic energies that bound the galaxy together. He had seen stars born and die, planets form and dissolve, and civilizations rise and fall. His role was to protect the delicate balance and ensure that the forces of creation and destruction remained in harmony. But something changed. A rare and unknown energy began to distort the cosmic web. It pulled stars toward a cataclysmic collision. Zephy, driven by his duty, ventured to the heart of this disturbance. He was determined to neutralize the threat. In his attempt to unravel the mystery of this energy, he was engulfed by it. Everything went dark. When he awoke, he found himself on a small blue planet, Earth. His memories were fragmented and his powers dormant. The passage of time blurred his once clear purpose. He adapted to a new, simpler existence. He became a car mechanic in the coastal town of Hammock. The ocean's waves and the scent of salt filled his days. His name, Zephy, was all that remained of his ancient identity. Years passed in quiet monotony. Zephy settled into the rhythm of human life, unaware of the sleeping power within him. He had no memory of the galaxy he was bound to protect, or the Curators he called his kin. All he knew was the comfort of routine and the companionship of his loyal dog Rex. But the universe has a way of reclaiming its own. Chapter 1: Zephy's Solitary Life.
The scent of motor oil and rubber filled air as I worked on a stubborn engine. Rex, my German shepherd, lay sprawled in his usual corner. He kept a lazy watch over the place. I was deep into routine when I heard a car pull in. The engine made a peculiar sound. I looked up to see a sleek sedan rolling to stop. The driver's side door opened and a young woman, probably in early 20s, stepped out. She looked around uncertainly, clearly out of her element. "Hello," she called out. Her voice carried a hint of desperation. "Is anyone here?" I wiped my hands on a rag. I approached. "What seems to be a problem?" I asked, keeping my voice steady and calm. She sighed in relief at seeing me. "My car's been making this weird noise. Now it just sounds awful. Can you help?" I nodded and motioned for her to pop the hood. "Let's have a look." As she fumbled with the latch, I caught her name on the license plate frame. Lena. She finally got the hood open. Peered inside, immediately noticing the frayed engine belt. "Looks like your engine belt is the culprit," I said, glancing up at her. "It's worn out and causing all that noise." She watched me work. Curiosity evident. "I'm Lena, by the way." "Zephy," I replied, not looking up from the engine. "Zephy? I've never heard that name before," she said. A hint of smile in her voice. I shrugged. "It's unique." There was brief silence as I continued to examine the engine. I wasn't much of a talker. She seemed to sense that. She leaned against the car, watching me work. "Do you work here alone?" she asked after a while. "Mostly," I said, reaching for a wrench. "Just me and Rex over there." I nodded towards my dog. He had now sat up, his ears perked as he watched Lena. She smiled at Rex. "He's beautiful." "Hi, Rex," she said softly. She turned back to me. "So how long will it take to fix?" "Not too long," I replied. I focused on loosening the tensioner to replace the belt. "Just need to swap out this belt, and you'll be good to go." She nodded, fell silent again, letting me work. I appreciated that she didn't push for more conversation. After a few more minutes, I had the new belt in place, tightened everything back up. I stepped away. "Give it a try now," I said, stepping back. Lena slid into driver's seat and turned the key. The engine started smoothly. Previous noise was gone. She looked up at me. Face lit up with gratitude. "Thank you so much, Zephy. You're a lifesaver." "Just doing my job," I replied. Wiping my hands again, she got out of car and stood in front of me. She hesitated for a moment. "Maybe I'll see you around?" Maybe, I said with a nod. She drove away and I watched her car disappear down street. Rex padded over to sit beside me. He looked up as if to ask about the visitor. Well, Rex, I said. I scratched his ears. That was a bit different, wasn't it? He wagged his tail. I couldn't help but feel that maybe today wasn't as typical as I'd expected. Life in Kit's hammock was predictable. That's the way I liked it. My small cottage faced beach, providing serene backdrop to my otherwise monotonous days. I owned a car garage where I worked alone. Rex, my German shepherd, was my only companion. We had our routine, and it suited us fine. The next day, as I was finishing up repair, I heard now familiar sound of Lena's sedan. It was pulling up. I frowned. It had only been a day since I'd fixed her engine belt. Rex lifted his head, ears perked with curiosity. I wiped my hands on rag and walked over. She stepped out of the car looking more frustrated than yesterday. Hey, Zephy, she greeted. Bit of exasperation in her voice. It's happening again. The engine's making that noise. Already? I asked. I was surprised. Pop the hood. As she opened the hood, I leaned in, immediately noticing the problem. The engine belt was cut cleanly, not worn out like before. I straightened up, a sense of unease settling in. This isn't normal wear and tear, I said, glancing at her. Looks like it was cut on purpose. Her eyes widened in shock. Who would do that? I shook my head. Hard to say. Anyone who knows their way around cars, I guess. She looked genuinely worried now. What should I do? I thought for a moment. First, let's get you a new belt. I have spare that'll fit. Then we can talk about what to do next. As I worked, Lena stayed close. Her anxiety was palpable. I replaced the belt swiftly, double-checking everything to ensure it was secure. That should do it, I said, wiping my hands again. But you might want to be careful where you park and who you trust around your car. She nodded, biting her lip. Thanks, Zephy. I don't know why this is happening, I shrugged. Sometimes people do things for reasons we can't understand. Just stay vigilant. Lena leaned against the car, looking out towards the beach. You live here alone? Yeah, I replied, following her gaze to the tranquil waves. Just me and Rex. It must be peaceful, she said softly. I've always loved the beach. It is, I agreed. But it can get lonely. She looked back at me. Her expression was thoughtful. Well, if you ever want company, I'm around. My aunt's place isn't far. I nodded. I appreciated the offer, but wasn't quite sure how to respond. I wasn't used to people reaching out. Thanks, Lena. I'll keep that in mind. As she drove away, I watched her car until it disappeared. Rex sat patiently by my side. The day felt different, tinged with hint of something unexpected. Maybe it was strangeness of the cut belt, or perhaps it was Lena's presence. Looks like we've got something to keep an eye on, Rex. I scratched his ears. He wagged his tail. Life in Kit's hammock might have been predictable, but today, the routine had been disrupted. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. 3 years have passed, and it's 2024 now. The world has changed in countless ways, but my life remains much the same, just the way I want it. The temperature has definitely gone up. It's especially noticeable here in coastal areas of Kit's hammock. The heat shimmers off the pavement. Standing at 6'1" with not-so-white skin tone, I've always felt sun's intensity a bit more. I prefer my hair mid-length, the way it falls just past my ears, a small rebellion against oppressive heat. World has changed in countless ways, but my life remains much the same, just the way I want it. I find solace in fixing cars, my hands covered in grease, my mind focused on mechanics of engine. My garage has seen some changes though. I managed to paint it, giving it fresh look. The once drab industrial gray is now a deep calming blue, a stark contrast against backdrop of sea. It's a small thing, but it makes space feel more like mine. More like home. Talking more about me, I look like I'm in my 20s. Rex is 6 years old now. His once boundless energy a bit more tempered, but still as loyal as ever. Before I owned garage, I had small fishing boat. I spent my days out on the water, the sea breeze in my hair and the salt on my skin. Everything changed when I became fascinated with cars. The moment they were invented, I was hooked. There was something about intricate machinery. The challenge of making an engine purr to life drew me in. Since then, I've dedicated my life to fixing cars. I haven't looked back. Today's heat is particularly intense. Sun blazes down from a cloudless sky. I can feel sweat trickling down my back as I work on an old pickup truck. Owner complained about brakes. I'm halfway through replacing them. I hear the familiar hum of a car pulling into garage. I look up, wiping my hands on a rag, see a sleek sedan rolling to a stop. A girl steps out. Despite heat, she looks as fresh as ever. "Hey, Zephy," she calls out, her voice carrying over sound of waves crashing against shore. "Got time to take a look at my car?" I caught her name on the license plate frame, Lena. "Sure, Lena," I reply, setting my tools aside. "What's going on with it?" "It's making that noise again," she says, brow furrowing with concern. "Think it might be engine belt." I nod, feeling sense of déjà vu. "Pop the hood, let's take a look." As she opens hood, I lean in, scanning engine. The wear and tear are more apparent, the signs of age showing on both car and belt. I start diagnosing the issue, my mind slipping into familiar rhythm of problem solving. She leans against car watching me work. "You've done a lot with the place," she says, looking around. "The paint looks great." "Thanks," I say, glancing up at her with a small smile. "Figured it was time for change." She nods, expression thoughtful. "Yeah, a lot has changed these past few years." "Not everything," I reply, focusing on the belt. "Some things stay the same." She's quiet for a moment, then she asks, "How have you been, Zephy? Really?" I pause, considering her question. "I've been all right," I say finally. She smiles, a hint of something unspoken in her eyes. Sometimes I envy that. The world out there is a lot. "I imagine so," I reply, tightening bolt. "But you're always welcome here, you know that." "Thanks," she says softly. "That means a lot." I finish up with engine and step back. Wiping my hands again. "Give it a try now." She slides into driver's seat and turns key. Engine purrs to life, smooth and steady. She looks up at me, her face lighting up with relief. "Perfect, as always." She steps out of car. "Thanks, Zephy." "No problem," I reply, giving her a nod. "Take care." As she drives away, I watch her car disappear down road. Rex pads over to sit beside me. I scratch his ears, feeling the weight of passing years, but also a sense of continuity. Stability. "Just another day, huh, Rex?" I said. He wags his tail in agreement. Life in Kit's hammock might be simple and predictable, but it's mine, and for now, that's more than enough. The next day, I was working on old convertible. I heard footsteps approaching. I looked up and saw Lena walking toward garage. She didn't have her car with her this time, just bright smile on her face. "Hey, Zephy," she called out. "Hey, Lena," I replied, wiping my hands on rag. "What brings you here today? Car trouble again?" She shook her head. "Nope, just thought I'd stop by and say hi. Got bit of free time." I nodded. I was a bit surprised, but pleased. "Good to see you. How've you been?" "I've been all right," she said. She leaned against garage door. "Busy with work and all, but I've been thinking about something." "Yeah, what's that?" She looked around garage, then back at me. "You seem really intelligent, Zephy. Why fix cars?" I chuckled, leaned against the workbench. "Well, I enjoy it. There's something satisfying about taking something broken and making it work again. Plus, cars have fascinated me since they were invented." Lena tilted her head, studying me. "You know, you look exactly the same as you did when I first met you years ago. It's like you haven't aged a day." "I met her yesterday and I don't remember meeting her years ago," I shrugged, a bit self-conscious. "Guess I've just been lucky." She smiled. "Well, whatever you're doing, it's working. You look great." "Thanks," I said, feeling a bit awkward but flattered. "You look good too, Lena. Life treating you well?" "Yeah, it is," she said softly. "It's nice to come back here and see something constant in a world that keeps changing." I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "Yeah, I guess this place is like that. Always here, always the same." She smiled warmly. "Comforting. Anyway, I should get going, but I'm glad I stopped by." "It's good to see you, Zephy." "You too, Lena," I replied. "Feel free to stop by anytime." "I will," she said, giving a little wave as she walked away. As she left, I couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth and familiarity. But I knew I needed to be careful. Getting too close to people, having them remember me too well, that could lead to complications I didn't want. My life here was simple and solitary for a reason. I didn't want to interfere in anyone's life. I didn't want anyone interfering in mine. It was safer that way for everyone involved. A day passed by and I felt an urge something bigger was about to happen on Earth. After that, a sense of discomfort settled in my gut. The tsunami alarms went off across the whole east coastal area. My town was impacted as well. This tsunami was a normal one, not catastrophic, But it was still a tsunami. It had formed 20 kilometers away. I could feel earth shaking due to the earthquake that had triggered it. I was least bothered about my own safety, but I knew I needed to take precautions for Rex. Safety was always my priority. Alarms blared. I watched as my neighbors packed up their cars and headed to the designated evacuation area. Up on the hill, the sense of urgency was palpable. I decided to stay at my cottage. I wanted to be here just in case something went wrong, and I needed to act quickly. Rex sensed my unease and stayed close to my side. I secured garage, making sure everything was as safe as possible. We settled into the cottage waiting for inevitable. Maybe I was being foolish. Not joining others towards evacuation area was probably a mistake. But I had a gut feeling that something like this happened before, and I could handle the tsunami. The sky was eerily calm, a stark contrast to chaos I knew was coming. The air was thick with tension. I could feel ground trembling beneath my feet, reminder of the earthquake that had set all of this into motion. As hours passed, the sound of the approaching tsunami grew louder. I braced myself. I kept Rex close. As waves drew near, something inexplicable happened. The water seemed to part around my cottage as if an invisible shield was protecting it. The waves crashed with fury further down the coast. My cottage remained untouched. I stood there bewildered. I watched the scene unfold. Rex pressed close to my side. He sensed my uncertainty. Together we watched the waves recede, leaving my cottage miraculously untouched. It was an anomaly, something I couldn't quite explain. For now, all that mattered was that we were safe. I looked out over the calm sea. I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was still on the horizon. Something that would change everything. But for today, Rex and I had made it through unscathed. That was enough.
This was episode 1 from the Curators Series, Book 1, Zephy Awakening by Kennard. Available only on StoryDepths YouTube channel. Click on the playlist to listen to other episodes.